YouTube. Today on the Naughty Librarian, I am doing my mid-May wrap-up. This beginning half of May has been a very fruitful reading month so far. I had 10 books on my original May TBR list, and I have read 8 of them already. So yeah, I've been a busy little bee. I've been reading extra hard. But one quick thing before we get into all my book reviews. I got my Book of the Month Club box! Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. They had some really good picks for May, and I just wanted to share what I picked out for May in particular. And yes, shameless self-promotion for just a hot second. I am a Book of the Month Club affiliate. If you've ever wanted to try out Book of the Month Club and sign up for your own subscription, you can use my link in the bio down below. And if you sign up using my link, I do get a small commission, and also you get to have cool books. Use the code MAY5 until May 31st if you're going to sign up, and you get $5 off your first box. So your first box is only $9.99, free shipping in the US. It's a steal. These are hardcover new releases. Anyway, let's get into what I picked for May. It should come as no surprise that I picked The Boyfriend Project by Farah Roshan. This one sounds so funny. It is about these 3 women who find out, we have all been being played by the same guy. So the same guy is dating 3 women simultaneously. They all find out about each other and they set off for a little bit of revenge, and it goes viral. And so all 3 women are now friends, and they're just like, yeah, for the next 6 months we're gonna like focus on us, we're gonna do things we want, get the men out of our system. And then what did you know, the moment you stop looking for things is when you find them. So our lead character here is Samaya. She is working on this app she has been developing, and then all of a sudden in comes Daniel, and she's like, oh shit, you're like great and stuff, oh man. So romantic complications ensue, and of course I'm gonna get the romance, like anyone's surprised at this point, but I couldn't believe they had this one. I'm so excited. It's definitely very diverse. It sounds super funny. It's a rom-com. I am so into it. It's definitely more of a modern age rom-com. It's very much in the digital world, and I'm so in. I think it's gonna be really fun. I'm excited. Alright, Book of the Month Club talk over. Let's get into the 8 books I have already read this month. First category is romance, and I read 2 of them. Let's start things off with a little bit of kilty fun. So I read Surrender to the Highlander by Lynsay Sands. It was the next book of this Highland Bride series that I have been like spacing out one a month for. And you know what? I think it might be my favorite one so far. It's hard to say that because there's been a lot of good ones. Like, they all have been really fun book candy, and they all have really much the same plot over and over again. But I like this one in particular. It was just really like refreshing. This is with Edith and Niels. We had been introduced to Edith in previous books, and we've been introduced to all of these Buchanan brothers in previous books. And they are all going over to Edith's estate because no one's been able to like hear from her, and their sister's worried. So they go there and they're like, let us see Edith. And they're like, no. And he's like, listen, like, we're gonna see Edith. So anyways, they get in, they find out something shifty is afoot because it turns out Edith has been being poisoned over several months. Oh no. So already we are introduced to the murder mystery subplot, and Niels is there taking care of Edith, and sparks kind of fly. Edith is very much a take charge kind of lady. She's running the estate. She's very kind. Everyone really respects her. I like Edith. And then you have Niels, who's also very, I don't know, evolved for men at this time period. You know, this is like 1700 Scotland. But one of the main reasons why I like this series so much is that all of the men in here are a bit evolved for the time period. They all seem to see women in positive ways and respect them. And yes, there is like inherent power dynamics at play here because it is the 1700s, so women didn't necessarily have all of the rights that men did, but in this series, these men seems pretty evolved, and that's one of the reasons why I really like it. I don't have to put up with like alpha male bullshit. Although, I mean, the cover is pretty alpha male. He is like, you know, being studly on a boulder because he's tough, you know, because tough guys lay on boulders with their abs out. You know, it has kilts, it has smut, it has relatively evolved men for the time period, and, you know, I liked it. It's a rom-com with this murder mystery subplot, and also kilts. Like, you can't really want a lot more in book candy, and it gave me everything I wanted. I think I gave it, like, 4.5 stars in the end. You know, it's book candy. I've explained the plot sufficiently. I liked it. It was fun. I don't know what else to say about it. Next up, I read Undercover Bromance by Lyssa K. Adams. And before I get into the review of this, I just want to like give you the short version of it, is that I gave it 4.5 stars. Oh my gosh. This is a second book that has defied second book syndrome. Look at it. Look at it. It's like a smutty little unicorn. I am so happy for it right now. Undercover Bromance is the sequel to the Bromance book club, and I liked the Bromance book club. I saw potential in it, and I went to book 2, and you know what? I think this series finally found its groove, because hot damn was this like so readable. I like devoured this book. I didn't feel like it took very long at all to read it. It flows very well, and also it's just really funny. Like, one of the things I thought the Bromance book club, the first book, was missing was the bromance. I wanted to see more relationships between these men, because what she's done here with these men is really interesting, because there's no toxic masculinity. They're actually actively exploring that in their lives and saying, like, fuck it, we like romance novels and we're dudes. Yeah, and like, I love it. And in this one, we got so much more of the bromance aspect of it. And seeing guys just like be there for each other and have like real meaningful friendships. There wasn't anything like bro-y about it. And I was like so into it. I think one of the biggest factors of this book is the male friendships, which sounds weird to say about a romance, but like, honestly, the bromance aspect of this book is next level. It's so good. I really like her male characters. They're like so expertly written. I wish more time was put into the female characters. I'll get into that. This one in particular is about Mac and Liv. We were introduced to these characters in book 1, and you know, it was one of those common enemies to lovers tropes, and that's another aspect of the series. They all play on romance tropes as well, because the boys read romance novels. So this is classic textbook enemies to lovers. So if you like that, you're gonna like this. But we have Mac, who's like Mr. Perfect essentially, and then you have Liv, who definitely has a big chip on her shoulder. And I felt the same way about book 1 and book 2, that, oh, like these women could be better. Like, they're not written well. Like, Liv really was obnoxious at points, and I'm not saying that like, oh, she's outspoken, therefore unlikable. No, she's like genuinely unlikable. She is like a self-righteous asshole at points. And I was like, really? There was like 2 chapters in here, I was like, ugh, this book has been ruined now by Liv. But then she turned it around, and I really, really enjoyed the ending. She brought me back, but like, there was a couple chapters where I was just like so angry at the female lead that I could not, like, I wanted to put the book down. So be aware, she's very unlikable, but throughout the course of the book, she does learn and grow, and by the end of the book, she's not the same person as she was in the beginning of the book, which is what you want from characters, and especially in a rom-com, you want to see growth and development. Same with Mac. Mac is very much like, I'm perfect on the outside. I have made myself into perfect romance novel man, but really he has like a more vulnerable, soft goo on the inside. He's like a hot lava cake, hot on the outside, goo on the inside. And I wanted that explored, and it brought everything I wanted it to bring. I was so excited about it. Like, I was so excited to read it. When I put it down, because I had to go to sleep, I'd wake up in the morning and be like, oh, I gotta read it again, and I was so excited. So yeah, second book that defied second book syndrome, was legitimately funny, was legitimately steamy, had all of the bromance you could ever want, and interesting relationships. Also, we got introduced to the next couple for the next book, and oh my goodness gracious, it's about this woman who owns a cat cafe, and she has a cat named Beefcake, and I am living for it! I finished this book and immediately pre-ordered the next one. That is how well I liked this book. I pre-ordered immediately. So yes, excellent book. I'm blown away. I gave it 4.5 stars mainly because Liv really pissed the shit out of me at times. Like, I could not stand her. But she does get better by the end, so be aware, you're gonna have a few chapters you're like, ugh. Next category is YA fantasy, and I read 3 of them. I read The Queen's Assassin by Melissa De La Cruz, and you know what? I was pleasantly surprised by this. Not that I was expecting it to be bad, but I kind of go in with like a little hesitation to YA fantasy these days. I just do. they can be great, but some of them can be not so great, and it might be just me because I'm an adult and not a YA reader, but whatever, I'm reviewing it. And The Queen's Assassin, Melissa De La Cruz. She's written tons of books, but I've never read a book by Melissa De La Cruz before, so I didn't really know what I was expecting. And I was so pleasantly surprised. I thought this was very well plotted. It didn't lag. It had great pacing, and overall, like, I thought it was really good. Like, I really got into these characters. I think I might read the next book when it comes out, like, just to see how this ends, because I think it's a duology. And yeah, like, I am pleasantly surprised. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was pretty darn good. We're basically following Kaladin and Shadow. Kaladin is the Queen's assassin, the titular Queen's assassin. He has been raised in this guild that is trained to be assassins for the Queen, because there's like magic and shit and assassination plots. And then you have Shadow, who's this country girl who's always wanted to be part of the guild. And she basically, I don't know, they basically get together for reasons I won't explain because those are plot points. And they set off on this big adventure where they have to, you know, figure out who's trying to murder the queen and the princess, and they go to different countries, and they're basically turned into a spy duo. And I was like loving it. I thought, you know, overall this does feel like very YA. It doesn't really feel like a crossover book where it's technically YA, but I'm like, that's an adult book. I'm like, no, this is definitely a YA book, but as an adult, I did enjoy it. So I feel like it'd be good for younger audiences as well. I liked the development between the characters. I thought their growing attraction between them was done very well, and it was kind of a slow burn in ways, and done well though. So I'm not really a fan of slow burn, I'm very impatient, but when you do it well, like, I get into it. And this one I felt like did it well. And there's this big plot twist, like, let's talk about it. There's a plot twist that was coming for the whole book, and honestly, like, I pegged it immediately. Now that might just be because I am an adult reader who's read thousands of books before that I could peg that, but I think if it was for like a YA audience member reading this book, if you were 16, you might not see that coming, and you're gonna be like, gasp! So it does have a fairly good twist, but one that I did see coming. But I wasn't like unhappy that it came, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, yeah, that's a good twist. Like, I knew it was coming, but it's a good twist. And I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I was impressed. Like, is it top 10 favorite books? No, but I thought it was very well written. It was very well plotted. It has cool magic systems. There's mages in this, and they have like crazy blood powers, and I'm like into it. I also read All the Stars and Teeth by Adalyn Grace. I'm gonna tell you right now, I went in expecting a completely different book than what I got. Like, I thought this was about mermaids. It's not. It's not about mermaids, like, at all. Like, there is a mermaid in it. There's one mermaid. She's like one of the main characters. We don't meet this mermaid till like halfway through the book though, so it's like, I was hoping I was gonna live my mermaid fantasy, and that didn't happen. But the mermaid that I did get in it was like a good mermaid character. Like, it was done well, so I was like, okay, I'll go along with this, even though this isn't the book I was expecting. Again, this is another book that's definitely a YA fantasy. I don't really see it as a crossover novel, but I'm an adult and I read it, and you know what? In the end, I gave it like 4 stars. I didn't think it was particularly bad. I thought it was pretty okay. Like, I liked it. I didn't love it, so I got 4 stars, but it was pretty good for a debut too. I'm like, oh, okay, like, I'll keep an eye on you and see what you write next, Adalyn Grace. I will say, this book was a bit of a journey for me. When it first started, I was like not feeling it, honestly. It has a lot of influence from, I would say, maybe Divergent, and I hated Divergent, so I was like, ugh, we're doing that again. But it stopped doing the things that Divergent really pissed me off with, and kind of just explored a different type of magical system. I wish it was better, again, because I just don't like Divergent and their setup. But if you like Divergent and you like that setup, you're gonna really like this. It was just like, this is like my personal taste, so I'm trying to put that aside and look at this objectively. While the magic system isn't necessarily my personal cup of tea, it was a well-written cup of tea. I thought it was like really well done and thought out. All of these different islands that have different types of magics on them felt unique and different, so I think the world building was good. And we're following Amora, who's a princess of this kingdom, and she has to, you know, save the day. She's Gryffindor AF. She's very much like run in and think later, but throughout the course of the book she does grow and learn, and she's so unselfish about things, which is weird because she has her moments of self-indulgence, but she's also, her core value is, I want to do well for the people I am supposed to rule. Like, she really genuinely cares about making everyone's life better, which is interesting in a heroine. Like, I didn't want to see her be conflicted about things. I'm like, I don't really want to rule. I want to be a normal girl. She's like, no, I want to rule because I'm good at it and I care about people. So it was like kind of a refreshing twist. Like, she didn't give us that thing that we kept seeing all the time. She gave us someone who was like, yeah, I want to rule. I'm good at it. So I appreciated that. And then also you have a pirate, which is full of witty banter. I love Bastian, the pirate. He has some good one-liners in it. Then you have her best friend, and then you have a mermaid. So you have a foursome out to save the day, stop a magical rebellion to, like, overthrow the crown. And like I said, it wasn't giving me all about mermaids that I was hoping for, but the mermaid I did get was dope. She was a really cool character. And overall, I thought it was pretty good. Like, I was kind of impressed with it. Will I read book 2? I don't know, honestly. It's questionable. I might, but like, I'm not really in a rush to do it, you know what I mean? Like, if I never read book 2, I wouldn't feel like this is unfinished. It's like a good stopping point where there's definitely more you need to go through and fix before you really have a conclusion. But if you never read book 2, it's still a complete story. It's one of those where you're just like, even if I don't ever read book 2, I still feel like I have an ending, you know what I mean? So I don't know if I'm gonna read the second book, but overall, like, I thought it was pretty well written. I was impressed with it. I gave it 4 stars. Didn't think it was that bad. Pretty good. I also read The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. I have really conflicting thoughts about this one. I think my overall rating is like 3.5 stars. I think I rounded up to 4 because I like to be optimistic in my stars, but it's definitely a 3.5. And it's weird because I used to love Marie Lu. I still do. I've read like everything Marie Lu has ever written, but this one, I don't know how I feel about it. I was coming into this thinking it was going to be maybe dark and spooky and YA, but I feel like it's middle grade and it's not YA. It definitely feels middle grade. Like, it feels like Percy Jackson level, if that makes any sense. Like, it's a middle grade book that's clever, but it's definitely middle grade. And it's about Mozart and Mozart's sister and this magical kingdom of Back. And it's kind of very much a fantasy fairy tale kind of story that crosses over into the real world. So it has an interesting world building concept here. It feels very much like a fairy tale, and if you like fairy tales, you might really get into this. The problem, I think, with me is that I am really kind of tired of fairy tales. Like, I'm kind of over it at the moment. And there were a lot of things I thought that could have been punched up and made more like bold and like spooky or scary, or even just more intense. I thought there was a lot of things that she could have done to really punch this up and make it like extra spicy. But right now it's mild. Basically, it's not bad, it's just mild, but it could, you know, with a little extra spice, it could have been something. However, the other side of that coin is that these are actual historical figures, so you have to take into account what their life actually was. And we're following Nannerl, who is Mozart's sister, and Nannerl had a whole life, and like, it's documented what happened to her. So it's also fairly tragic in a way. It's like, if you're hoping for this big happy ending, you're not gonna get it. It's kind of tragic, and when you think about Nannerl's real life, like, she had a lot of tragedy in it. You know, she was completely overshadowed by her brother when realistically she probably wrote a lot of the music that got published under Wolfgang's name. And she always wanted to have this fame, and she realizes she's never gonna get that fame, and because she's a woman, and it's very tragic, this tragic story about her. And you kind of just see her come to terms with her dreams dying. I'm sorry, I'm getting too specific into themes and I'm getting spoilery, but like, it's really kind of tragic. It's like this tragic fairy tale, and I just wasn't vibing with it as much as I wanted to. I needed some extra spice, some extra flavor to really get it there. And right now it's kind of like a mild middle grade, which isn't bad. It gave 3.5 stars. It's still well written. It's just not like my flavor profile, if you get what I mean. But it's not bad. It's okay. It's pretty good. Not great, but it's okay. 3.5 stars. Next category is adult fantasy, and I read 2 of them. I finally read City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty, and I don't know why I slept on this book so long, because hot damn I loved it. 5 stars. So good. From chapter 1, page 1, I immediately love the main character, Nari. She is dope. She's kind of a con woman, like healer type of person, like, oh, I'll sell you some snake oil, but she actually does have the powers to back it up. But she's kind of streetwise and shifty and clever, and like I immediately was totally rooting for this character. It's not rare necessarily, but it's extra special when on page 1 of the book you immediately really like the main character. And page 1, yes, immediately like this character so much. I'm already invested. And it's a big sweeping fantasy. It starts in like 1800s Cairo in, Egypt. And eventually they do go to a magical kingdom full of jinn and they're magical creatures. And it's based on, kind of on Arabian mythology. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very lush feeling. Like the foods they were eating, the settings they were in, like the fabrics on the clothes. Like it was all very lushly detailed. So I really could transport myself to that environment. I didn't have to have, like the white wall syndrome where you're just like, I know what's happening, but I can't picture it. It's like, no, I could picture these settings, and it had a real sense of place and feel, and I really liked that world building. So in this world, there are the jinn. They have multiple names for the jinn in this book, but for the sake of this review, we'll just call them the jinn. And they also have people who are half jinn and then humans. And everyone with jinn blood has to live in these magical cities. And the half jinn people are kind of shit on by the full-blooded ones, and it's not very nice. And then you have Nari, who accidentally conjures up a jinn warrior, and she's like, oh shit, I was joking. And he's just like, well, I'm here now, lady, we gotta go to this magical city. And she's like, no. And he's just like, yeah, it's gonna happen. So they're off on this adventure to a magical city. It's Nari and Dara. And it's kind of their adventure for a lot of the book until they finally get to the magical city. And then you have Act 2, where it's like a completely different story. So there's 2 story arcs here. And I just really wanted to root for Nari. She was one of those characters I immediately connected with. I wanted to root for her. I was into her story. It's definitely a rich political background. The culture that she has put into the story does feel a little bit based on, Arabic culture. And I like that it was just casually dropped into the story, like their religion and how it impacts them, and how humans and their religion have impacted them. The world building is dope. I can go on and write a 20-minute review video about just the world building here, but it's expertly done. Expert level. It's 5 stars for just world building alone. And I don't want to get into too much of the plot points because it's spoilery, but I loved it. It was so freaking good. I can't believe I slept on this book for so long. Part of me is a little happy because I know the last book of the series is coming out the end of June, so I can just marathon it and not forget any details. So I'm kind of excited for that I can just marathon it all, not forget stuff before the last book comes out. So that's a positive here, but don't sleep on this if you haven't read it. It is so good. It gets chef kiss good. It's brilliant, frankly. I loved it. I'm in love with it. I can't wait to read book 2 since I already own it, and I already pre-ordered the 3rd book. That's how much I liked book 1. I pre-ordered book 3. I'm way into this. I like it. I love it. I'm in love with it. 5 stars. I also read Red Country by Joe Abercrombie. This was my Abercrombie of the month. Now, I'm just gonna say it, okay? 5 stars. This is my favorite Abercrombie book, and I don't think any other Abercrombie fans have ever said that. It's my my favorite. It's so good. It's another chef kiss book. I loved it so much. The themes being explored here are so freaking good. I think what also helped is that it's about my favorite character, which is Logan Ninefingers. Now, if you were up to date in the series, you realize the last time we saw Logan, he was presumed dead. However, no body, no death. We've all come to accept this in life. And it's not like a big spoiler to say this is about Logan, who actually isn't dead, because he's on the cover. He's Logan Ninefingers because he's missing a finger, and there's a guy missing a finger on the cover. Like, obviously it's Logan. But, oh, it gave me everything. Like, this book, while it is very dark, it has that Abercrombie grimdark fantasy in it where, like, oh, there's just atrocities being committed and they're horrible, and he lets them be horrible to witness. But the other side of the coin is that this book has such great contrast that while you have those atrocities happening that you're used to in Abercrombie works, you also have this hope that's kind of missing in some books. Especially the last two books I've been reading, there hasn't been in that aspect of like hope. And this one like brought it back. Like there's like this hopeful tone to it, and I really liked it. Like, you could describe this loosely as a Western. It's kind of like a wagon train, you know, westward expansion going to a mining town. They're looking for their kidnapped kids, and it's also, you know, it's Logan Ninefingers, and Logan Ninefingers, he's basically the boogeyman. You know, he's very nice and he doesn't want to be the boogeyman deep in his soul, but he still is the boogeyman, essentially. So, you know, it's interesting seeing him after we haven't seen him for so long and wondering what happened to him. And kind of, you know, what happens to him? He, like, has a few kids. He's like Daddy Logan, and I'm so into it. Like, hard into it. So hard. Daddy Logan, yes. Murder Daddy, give me all the days. I want it so bad. My Abercrombie Sherpa, Leanna from Leanna's Library, I was live texting her while I was reading this. I'm like, yes, Murder Daddy! I was like so into Logan being a father. But anyway, sorry, back to the story. It's them trying to go find their kids that were kidnapped. It's him and like his stepdaughter. And I love their relationship. It's very sassy, and we're seeing a whole new side of Logan where he has fully come to terms with the fact that he's a monster, but he has a choice in the matter. He's like, I don't want to be a monster, so he changed his whole life. He's like, no, I want to be, like, not a monster. And, you know, don't get me wrong, he's not in here, you know, tucking children in at night. He does have the bloody nine comes to play in this book. And it's interesting to see that, like, war going on inside him that we got in other books, but in this one it's really deeply explored, and I loved it. And also it's kind of a turning point in the series in general, just the world building, because this is a wagon train, westward expansion, mining is starting to be a big deal, coal is starting to be a big deal. They're basically at the cusp of the Industrial Revolution. And all of the books have this one aspect of this character, Baez, who's like the head mage. Like, he is like the magician in charge of everything. And this is the only book that Baez doesn't show up in. And I think that's a turning point for the series, because people are going to start looking more and more towards technology and less towards magic. Sorry, I'm getting too deep here, but like there's multiple reasons why I gave this 5 stars. I thought it was incredible. I've just been gushing about this book. This isn't barely a review, this is me just geeking out about it, but hot damn, it's my favorite Abercrombie. I haven't heard anyone else say Red Country's their favorite Abercrombie, but oh my gosh, I loved it so much. It's so good. It's my favorite. There you go. It's my favorite Abercrombie. Red Country, dope, 5 stars. Last category is horror, and I read one of them. I read The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. And oh my gosh, fuck me up. Like, that's how I felt about it. This is such a mindfuck book. And all Tremblay books, I'm starting to believe, are mindfuck books, because the horror is, yes, it's physical horror. There's horrible bloody violence in this book. But the real horror is in your brain, because you don't know what's real. And that's kind of been, I've only read one other book by Paul Tremblay, but it was the same type of horror where you don't really know what was real and what's not real, and is it supernatural, is it not supernatural? There's a lot of like compelling evidence for both cases, and you don't really know, and you're just left with this like clusterfuck of a brain afterward, and you're like, what happened? So yeah, 4 stars. Oh, fuck me up. Okay, so it's basically about there's this gay couple, and they're in a cabin with their adopted daughter, and then one day these 4 people show up, purge style, and they're like, hey, we need to talk to your dads. And the little girl's like, I don't think so. And then like they're like, no, we're gonna talk to your dads. And they show up with like creepy weapons, and they're all like, hey, the world's gonna end unless one of y'all decides to get sacrificed. So shit gets real quick. So then you just have psychological terror of like, is the world ending? Is the world not ending? Why is everyone getting murdered? This is horrendous. Oh my gosh, this book will fuck you up. And I don't know if it's in a good way or not, but it's certainly in the fuck you up way. It's just psychological terror. I think it's very well written, honestly, but it's like a mind fuck. You don't know. I still don't know. I think I know how I see the book, but like it could go either way. You don't know. You don't know. I'm sorry. I can't even review it properly because I'm so like clusterfucked from it. If you want like something psychologically terrifying and also very violent, this is probably a really good one for you. It's definitely scary, but it's one of those books that's gonna fuck you up because you don't know what's real and what's not real. It's one of those psychological thrillers. Scary, but like in a clusterfuck way. I keep saying the same things over and over. I'm just gonna end the review, but yeah, 4 stars. Okay, so I have been a little reading machine. I have read almost my entire TBR in the first half of the month. So yeah, the second half of the month, it's just gonna be a wild card. I'm kind of excited for it, but I think I just read all these books so quickly because they were all kind of really good. Like I didn't read anything bad. And so far every month this year I've had like at least one DNF where I'm just like, ugh, like I can't deal with you. And this month so far, all of the books have been good. Like my lowest rating was 3.5 stars. Like that's still good. Like, they're killing it. I'm really impressed with the books I picked this month. Like I'm like, yeah, girl, like I did good. Anyway, let me know in the comments down below, have you read any of these books? And if so, which one's your favorites? Which one's your least favorites? What's your favorite Abercrombie? Because I think I'm the only person in the world who's going to say Red Country. Let me know if I'm alone or not. Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye!